Hey everyone, welcome back to the shop. It's time that I give you a proper update on the Airtruk project. Let's get started. So without further delay, I'm going to play for you the clip of the maiden flight. So enjoy that.
Everything for him. Welcome to SEF 2023. I'm here with the Transavia PL12 Airtruk, and I'm really excited to give this a first fly. We'll see how it goes. It's pretty heavy. I've done some taxi testing, so the taxiing is a little questionable, a little spongy, a little mushy, so takeoff might be a little sloppy. But I also don't know a whole lot about this airplane, so we're going to give it my best, see how it goes. It might be good, it might be tragic. It's one of those things. All right, let's fly.
Shake, rattle, and roll.
Taking off right to left. That was short.
So as you can see, the airplane did not fly. There's a number of things that we need to go over. First and foremost, I want to reiterate that 70% by estimation of this airplane I did not build. And so there are things about this model that I just don't know about. The reason I don't know is because I don't have the plans for this particular model. So that makes it really difficult for me to understand what's inside. It's been a little bit of investigation here and there, anecdotal evidence. So one of the things that I want to point out for that is I tried to dig a little bit deeper and figure out within the tail boom, is it a pushrod configuration for these control surfaces, or is it a bell crank system? So I figured out that the elevator is a bell crank system. The rudder is just a nylon push rod. So inherently with nylon push rods, they are pretty flexible. So there's quite a bit of flex in and play in the rudder control surface. To make matters worse, the elevator, because it has that bell crank system, it's not a push rod. The reason I know it's not a push rod is because I can't pull the push rod or pull the push rod out when it's disconnected from both ends. So it has a lot of slop in the control surface. So the way that you mitigate that is you have a more direct link. What creates that slop is a compounding factor of the little tiny bit of clearance within the bell crank for the push rod at this end, the push rod down, and a push rod that goes here. Those little bits of play, they add up. And so that is something that we had to account for. The worst offender of this play in all of the control surfaces comes down to one other particular peculiarity for this model. It uses these really old low-profile servos. Now, I had considered trying to replace these because they are rather antiquated. They're not useless, but I had concerns over torque values, reliability, etc. I don't know how much they've been used, if they've been flown before. The problem is that because of their odd size, that the real only replacements for them were pretty expensive. And for 4 in each wing, it just wasn't economical to justify given a completely unproven airframe. So I decided to risk the servos, just leave them as they are. Now the drawback to that is that these servos do not have a ball bearing supporting the spline. And so as you move the control surfaces, just deflecting them unpowered, that you can see the spline shake a little bit inside the servo casing. So with that said, it was a big risk trying to fly this model to begin with, okay? Now, I had accepted that it was either going to be spectacular failure or spectacular success. I didn't care. Everybody at CEF wanted to see it try to fly or fly. So I did. I committed to it. And unfortunately, the other unknown thing happened. I just don't know everything about this model. The nose gear for the airplane is made out of metal. It was custom fabricated. The shock absorber in the front is actually from a gun case or a bullet casing. There's a strut, like a metal pin, and then there's a cup that goes over top of that, and it sits in there, and that's what springs up and down to absorb. Now, because I had put the brake in, I didn't think about this, but I didn't know that I had to put so much weight up in the nose to get it to balance. So with the weight in the nose and the tire being slightly offset and all of that combined together, there was a lot of weight shaking up and down. It was bouncing up and down a lot. And I think what happened here is that with all of the taxi testing that I did beforehand, along with all of this weight up front, that there was some tire rubbing on the fork. And that rolling resistance added to already a whole bunch of fatiguing going on the metal. And so that landing gear just ripped right off the peg. It didn't bend, it just broke. And so once that wheel ripped off, the peg dug into the ground, and that's what flipped the airplane over. So there we have it. That's our root cause analysis. So where do we really go from here? Other wing, the tip of the wing is damaged and can easily be repaired and rebuilt. However, this wing has something a little more concerning. I'll take you off the tripod and I'll show you what I mean. So I want you to keep in mind that this doesn't look that bad, but the implications of it are really what is bad. So here is the bad part. You can see that the boom has cracked, and the crack is okay. It seems pretty minor, but when you go to move it, and you can see that this piece is separated, and that's pretty minor. Again, pretty minor. But let me try to stabilize this wing with my arm, and you can see maybe I can't really get the right leverage. Anyway, this boom does move and this crack does open up, and that's bad. So what I don't know is anything about what's inside the boom. I don't know anything about the fixture of the boom to the wing on the inside. I don't know how to fix this. Now, I could pull it apart piece by piece, figure it out, reverse engineer it. I could, just throw some foam at the problem. If that foam is sufficient, this may be structural. I don't know. And that's really the main issue. Because I don't know how this is constructed, tearing it apart could make an absolute disastrous mess of it. I could open it up and find out and go, oh, I know what the problem is, but it may be a situation where I can't fix it anyway. So that's why I've left it the way it is, so that I can explain my logic here. In my opinion, at this point, this model is no longer worth trying to save. It is not worth my time. It is not worth the safety, because
if I get this incidence wrong, then the tail angle of attack could make this airplane fly wildly out of trim because of that lever arm. Now, I could measure it off the good wing, but again, I don't know if that good wing has been built correctly. There's a lot of stuff I just don't know. It just, for safety and for sanity, it just makes sense to take this as a loss and understand that the airplane's probably overweight. I haven't weighed it because I don't have a frame of reference. I could calculate the wing loading, and it would tell me something. I think, honestly, it's flyable. It'd probably have to fly pretty fast, but you know, you're getting down a road where it's just sort of like, well, why? And so I think the best course of action is to try to build this model from scratch, which leads me down the next point. All right, so what I have here are plans for a larger 1/4 scale Transavia PL-12 Airtruk. All right, so that's the solution. I got plans. This gentleman, because of copyright issues, we don't know everything about the copyright for these plans. These are hand traced. They're not photocopied plans. So he traced these plans by hand using a light box, had them scanned and sent them to me. I will not be distributing these plans for him. I'm not mentioning his name, but I am giving him credit because you can't get these planes. You can't buy them new. But he's got an ongoing project, and I would like to build this model. And I'm not going to go off a 3-view. I'm not going to trust an artist's hand to get the aerodynamics of this model right. So that being said, I have plans to build this model. I think 1/4 scale is a good size. If I can go bigger, that would be nuts. But I do think that it would be a worthwhile project in the future. So that being said, the Airtruk will live on, but not this current model. I'm going to pull all the electronics out of it and save all the receivers and things like that. The servos will go in the garbage. And maybe I'll do a follow-up video and I'll actually crack this open and show you what I mean when I say I go inside and I'll do surgery and exploratory surgery. We'll call it that. We'll call it exploratory surgery. So on that fun note, surgery seems like a good ending point. Make sure that you guys keep performing surgery, invasive surgery, on your flying works of art.